Well, good afternoon. This is a Thrifty Traveler's Guide to Study Abroad. This is the very first time we are hosting a webinar on this topic through the Financial and Life Skills Center, and we're really, really excited about it. We know that this is a topic of major interest for college students. This is also a topic that deals a lot in money. Certainly, study abroad is not necessarily free as a price tag, though if you can get the cost down to zero and still go, how exciting. And we'll talk more about some of the ways to fund that program here today. Fortunately for me, I am not having to present this all by myself. I wouldn't say that I am the expert on study abroad, but we do have two individuals in on the call who are able to speak to their experience as well as their expertise in the office of Penn State Global. So we've got Kristin Franco here. Kristin, I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself just so that I'm not doing all the talking early on.
Sure. Thanks, Sarah. My name is Kristin Franco. I am an education abroad advisor in the Office of Penn State Global. I currently advise for programs in Portugal, Spain, as well as Latin and South America and the Caribbean. So those are kind of the programs that I'm an expert on, but I do have a lot of good general knowledge as well. I'm very proud to say that I'm also an alumna, both of Penn State and of Penn State Study Abroad. I did a summer program to the University of Sussex when I was an undergraduate, a little bit longer ago than I will admit. But I'm very passionate about education abroad, especially. I've had the opportunity to travel and live all over the world, and I'm constantly still learning. So I'm local. I was born and raised in Altoona, Pennsylvania. So it's always such a pleasure for me to get to work with students at Penn State and help them have similarly transformative experiences as I was allowed to have. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kristin. I'm really grateful that you're here. Obviously, you all heard that Kristin is super knowledgeable, well-versed and experienced in this topic. So she's going to have a lot of great information to share with you. She's going to take back over in just a minute to kind of get us started. But before we move on, let's finish intros, right? We've got Clarissa on the call. I'll let her introduce herself, and then I'll kind of round us out and give you all a chance then to talk a little bit about why you're here.
Yeah, so hello everyone. Apologies for not having my camera on. I think it's been disabled by host, but know that I am here and saying hello. My name is Clarissa. I work for the Sokolov-Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center as a financial literacy ambassador. I am a Schreier scholar in her junior year, and I'm studying political science and criminology. And I'm here to both talk about here we go. Okay. I'm here to both talk about my experience in study abroad. I've completed a Maymester and an embedded course, as well as just share some of my general tips that I've picked up over my time traveling as a young person trying to save money. So very excited to be here today and to be able to give some insight to the student perspective.
Awesome. Thanks, Clarissa. I'm really excited. She's got a whole slide that she's going to talk about, and I haven't seen her talk about it yet, so I'm really excited about this. And then I'll wrap up. So I'm Sarah Metzger. I am one of the assistant directors here at the Sokolov-Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center. Normally, if you tune into our webinars, you hear Allie Smith on the call, but we're changing things up a little bit today. So I'm going to be one of the co-presenters. And my experience with study abroad is non-existent in that I didn't formally study abroad in college, but I did travel abroad while I was a college student and a little bit afterwards. So in my experience as an international traveler, I have been to Uganda. So I did 2 weeks in Uganda, nearby Entebbe. So if you've ever been to Uganda. And then I've also done a little bit of traveling in Europe, very short, like long layovers kind of traveling, and then some time up in Canada, which I guess for a lot of folks here in the Northeast don't necessarily see that as international travel. But I'm from the Midwest, and going up to Toronto felt very kind of different for me as somebody who hadn't been to Canada before. So that's my experience. I think as a trio, we have a lot of good information to share today, and we're going to get diving right on into that. So we're going to turn the conversation to you all. I think knowing, for those of you who are undergrad students, and I know we've got a lot of undergrads in the call today, those of you who do want to study abroad, tell us your goals, your desires, and I think that can help the three of us be a little bit more intentional with what we share today. So if there are specific programs that you're interested in, certainly if they fall within what Kristin advises on, I mean, you've got the expert right here. So let's hear from you all. If you don't mind hopping to the chat, there's a couple of open-ended questions that you're welcome to answer. We'd love to see, why do you want to study abroad? Where are you going? What do you hope to gain out of that experience? And I'm going to open it up so that you all can see everybody's responses. And Clarissa, you're welcome to get in on that chat too, because you haven't graduated yet. You could still do some more study abroad. Oh, nice. Wait, are you doing that this year? Are you traveling abroad?
Yes, yeah, I'm going to be going to Rome for the Master program.
Oh,
Don't worry, still working for the center.
I
It'll
was like,
be
wait a
class.
second. We didn't talk about this. Where are you going? No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, good stuff. All right. Anybody else? Oh, come on. We're so curious. It's so fun. World travel. Where do you want to go?
Well, no pressure. Hopefully maybe by the end of this presentation, you'll feel a little bit more confident about some of these topics.
That much is true. And frankly, some of you might be en route as we speak, listening on your phone. So walking and typing is not necessarily the easiest thing to do. All right. Well, let's get cracking then. We've got a money saving guide that Kristin and I and Clarissa are going to present to you. Kristin's going to talk a lot at the beginning because it if you're looking to save money as you study abroad in undergrad, there are a lot of steps that you can take in advance of the actual travel that can make the experience more affordable for you. And this is where Kristin is our expert on the call and can advise you. I guess, that is her title. She can advise you on what to be mindful of. So I'm going to go ahead and give Kristin control of the screen and let her take it away from here.
Right. So one of the things that we really recommend just getting started is this Education Abroad 101 module that we have. So essentially, it just kind of introduces you to education abroad at Penn State through Global, and kind of some general information that, no matter what program you're looking to do is valuable, as well as just kind of getting you acquainted with some of the resources that are available to you as you look to study abroad. So you see the link there. It is like a little mini course that you can do. And we just think it's a great first step to get acquainted with our office and start to see what is available. So another thing that students ask us quite a lot is, who should I be talking to as I'm making these plans? And obviously our office is going to be helpful, but I think what a lot of students don't realize is that often it's best to actually start with your academic advisor. We work, our Penn State Global office works with students in every major and minor at every Penn State campus. So unfortunately, we can't be experts on all of the very specific degree plan requirements that everybody has. So even if you're only considering studying abroad, the earlier you can talk to your academic advisor about it, the better. Because especially if you're in a major that has very specific requirements, the earlier you can kind of start to plan, when might be a good time to go abroad, maybe setting aside some requirements that might be easier to fulfill abroad as early as possible is really going to help you not only be a little bit less stressed about, doing a program, but also give you a bit more choice as to the programs that might be available for you to fulfill certain requirements. We do have resources on each of our program pages to help you find courses in each program, as well as see, what their equivalent would be at Penn State. Because when you go abroad through Penn State Global, you are coded as a Penn State student even while you're abroad. So it's a bit unique. The credits you get transfer back and factor into your GPA as Penn State credit. They aren't transfer credits. So I think that's a big selling point of doing a program through our office. Also, our office is able to help you with a lot of the logistical information, both before and after you study abroad. So we partner a lot with academic advisors to help you, negotiate and kind of navigate choosing classes. Because again, one way to be a thrifty traveler is to ensure that all the courses you're taking while abroad are going to fulfill degree plan requirements. And then you won't have to add time onto your education at Penn State to participate in a program abroad. That's our goal for every student, to find courses that will move their degree plan forward and functionally act as a regular semester of credit. So once you do that, you're going to start looking at program options that have potential for you. And one of the things that we have kind of cultivated on our website is a listing of programs that are cost comparative to a semester at the University Park campus. Now, if you're at a Commonwealth campus, costs are a bit different. You will pay University Park tuition during your semester abroad. So I think that's important to know as well. But we have a listing of programs that just right off the bat are comparable to a semester on University Park campus, which I think can be really helpful. And just because you would look at a program like this doesn't mean that it's going to narrow your options of where you could potentially study either. As you can see, we've got programs in Asia, Europe, South America, and Oceania on this list. So again, very robust options, even for programs that have slightly lower price tags. We also have some programs that, due to special kind of contracts with our office, are able to offer in-state tuition rates to out-of-state students, which can also be a great big savings. These programs are through our three largest providers, so IES, CIEE, and Arcadia. So if you see a program with one of those codings in it, that for semester-long programs, out-of-state students would pay the in-state tuition rate. For summer programs, we're actually able to do that for all of our programs. So if you're an out-of-state student, you would pay an in-state tuition rate for a summer program. So these are all definitely things that it's good to be thinking about as you're considering options in regards to cost. So Debbie, I do believe that we're recording the session, and we'll send out the recording and the slide deck to all the registrants. Sarah, is that correct?
Yeah, so just so everyone is aware, the recording will be up on YouTube. I do believe we send a follow-up email to the registrants, so you'll have access to see this all again. And please rewatch this, because there's a lot of good information in here.
Thanks so much, Sarah. So next is to make a financial plan. We have a great video on our YouTube channel about what kind of makes up the costs of a study abroad program. The number one question we get at new student orientation is, well, how much does it cost to study abroad? And there's almost as many answers to that as there are program options and students who do them. So there's a bunch of things to consider when you're looking at program options. So we have a wide variety of program lengths. I think a really common misconception is that if you want to study abroad, you have to study abroad for a whole semester. That's not the case. Although we do have lots of great semester-long programs. We also have programs for various lengths over the summer. We have some really cool programs called embedded programs where you can actually do a class on campus and then travel abroad with your class and professor for a week, maybe over spring break or, following the end of the semester. But it's good to look at that. Obviously, programs that are shorter are likely to be much less expensive than longer programs. But sometimes it is good to look at kind of like cost per day, because even though overall a program might cost more, you could potentially get what we call more bang for your buck by doing a longer program. So it's kind of up to you and like what your goals and interests are. Location. So cost of living is absolutely front of mind for most people. And that is true anywhere you go in the world. So often traditional study abroad locations like in Western Europe, in Australia, New Zealand, cost of living, especially in the larger cities, can be quite high. Whereas if you go to places like I advise for in Latin and South America, we have some programs in Africa, some non-traditional locations, you can find lower costs of living so that your day-to-day costs can come way down. And the other thing that can make these locations more affordable is that because they're not traditional, there's often a lot of scholarship support for students because they would like them to explore these locations. And also there's less competition for these scholarships because not as many students are studying in these destinations. So it's definitely something to think about. We work with some really great partners in some non-traditional locations. So we definitely recommend checking that out. And then, as I said, the type of program. So we have several different types of programs, and they kind of come with their own level of cost, but also their own level of support. So sometimes an exchange program might be less expensive, but because you're working directly with a foreign university, the amount of direct support that they provide is much lower. So if you feel like maybe it's your first time ever going abroad, you're a little nervous, sometimes it might be worth it to pay a little bit more for a direct enroll study center program that's going to have a full staff specifically there to support you over, a more independent program that might cost a bit less. So again, just comparing, being really introspective and thinking about like what's going to be best for you, what's going to best serve you, and being really honest with yourself. I feel like we tell students all the time, there's not like a good and bad option. It's what's going to serve you and what's going to be best for you and your goals and your personal situation. All right. Oh,
I think it has some animations on here.
I jumped. Okay. So, as I mentioned, each of our programs have a brochure page that you can find more information specifically about each program. One of those sections is about costs and funding. So all of our programs have what's called a budget sheet where we lay out potential costs as best we can. Sometimes, depending on how far in advance you're looking, there will be updates, when we get new tuition rates, things like that. So we do update these regularly. So we do recommend checking in on these from time to time to see if there are updates. So we have two programs here side by side, both in Sweden, so like same location, and you can see they vary quite a bit in cost. The top three things that you'll see, the top three items are what we call our billable items. Those get billed to LionPath on a regular schedule. So if you're studying abroad for fall of 2025, when your regular fall bill would post, that's when your study abroad bill will post. And those three costs will be what is billed. We're going to dive into the program fee a little bit more in a moment, but the billable totals are fixed. Once they're updated, that's exactly how they'll appear on LionPath. Now, the bottom costs, the non-billables, are estimates because we want to make sure that students have kind of a full understanding of a total cost. But these are, like I said, estimates. You might be able to get a cheaper airfare depending on where you're flying from. If you're living in an apartment and there's a kitchen, you might shop at the market and make most meals at home. So that cost of meals can come way down as opposed to someone who is eating out at restaurants for most of their meals, etc. So one of the things that I want to point out here is the program on the left in Jönköping, Sweden, is an exchange program. And as you'll notice, it does not have a program fee. So the program fee essentially is 0, which sounds really, really good. But if you'll notice, there's a housing cost under the non-billables. That is because the program fee for that program does not include the cost of your housing. Now on the right, you'll see our DIS program, which has a very high program fee, and I feel like sometimes scares people away a little bit. But what you'll see in a moment is why it's good to not just take those at face value when you're comparing program options. So the program fee can vary on what it covers. So if you are on those budget sheets and you scroll down the page, it's actually going to list all of the things covered by that program fee. So because there is not a program fee for the program in Jönköping, students will pay all of the fees for the different things in person once they're in country. And that includes the housing cost, and that can vary depending on the housing that you choose. Now, the DIS program fee was quite high, but then as you see, it's because it includes a lot of things. So study tours are basically week-long field trips. So it includes like your transportation, your housing, 1 meal a day for those during the semester, all of your housing costs, which in Stockholm can be expensive, as well as any utilities or anything like that. All of your books and materials for your courses. If you're further away than just a short walk, you do get a transportation pass. It gives you a meal stipend that covers about 2 meals a day. Laundry facilities, so you don't have to worry about that. So yeah, it's always good if you're looking at costs comparatively to see, yes, this cost is higher, but it's because they include a ton. So I would say that a major difference between these two is that with DIS, you're going to pay a lot in advance, and then your day-to-day costs will be much lower. Whereas with Jönköping, once you're in country, your costs are probably going to be higher. And, you know, it's one of those things that because we bill a program fee to LionPath, if you get a lot of aid or, you know, apply for a lot of scholarships and are awarded, that might ultimately end up being a better choice than, you know, a lot of things that are going to come out of your pocket once you're abroad. So just things to consider. And, you know, while you're kind of cost comparing different kinds of programs.
I think this is really good information, Kristin. And given the number, do you know off the top of your head how many programs there are that students can peruse on the webpage?
Oh my gosh, I think it's like more than 300 in over 50 countries. So, you know, lots to compare. That's why we think it's great to start if you're really serious about an affordable program. Sometimes it's nice to start with that affordable programs list, because just for the pure fact that it narrows some of your options. Now, if you are in a major that you're going to have to take some pretty specific courses, we do have a program search that allows you to search for some different metrics. Our advanced search option actually does let you search by field of study. So, if you're looking for specifically like programs that have, potential for engineering majors or business majors, science majors, things that, degree plans that are a little trickier to make sure that things will fulfill requirements, you can do that as well. But we'll have a slide later. We have a great team of peer advisors that work here in our office, as well as me and my fellow and abroad advisors, to try to help you navigate narrowing those options, because I feel like sometimes that can be hard too. Is like there's too much choice almost, and how do I eliminate options?
Yeah, no, I certainly, in retrospect, I wish I was a student who had done study abroad back in the day when I was an undergrad, but I also can imagine that if I had, I would have been the person who was just like hemming and hawing and kind of just looking at a list like that and having a hard time coming to a decision. So, to Kristin's point, when we talk more about those peer advisors, there are others who, can help, bridge your understanding of what their experience was like so that you can be a little bit more decisive.
Yeah, and please, like, even if you, honestly, especially if you are feeling completely overwhelmed by the options and how to get started, that is exactly what we're here for. And I feel like that's exactly what our peer advisors are experts in, because they are students just like you who were at that place and have successfully navigated that process themselves as a student. So I feel like not only can they help you get started with that process and navigate it, I feel like they're also like a nice inspiration, because it's like it can be done, they did it. It's not impossible.
Mm-hmm. That's the hope that we have with our student team. Clarissa, you're on this call. That's what we hold you up all as the student team for as well here. So yeah, we'll definitely shower you all with more praise in a little bit. We have slides dedicated to you. But
I do
for
just want to
now,
quickly answer the question in the chat.
oh yeah.
International students can absolutely do exchange programs. The requirements vary based on where the program will be, but our program partners do a great job helping students navigate visa requirements. So I wouldn't let that kind of dissuade you from applying for a program if you're interested.
That is an excellent question. And that's something that we can continue to share with other international students that we work with here on campus. Okay, excellent. If you all do have more questions, it's probably a good time to point out that the Q&A is open. So if you'd prefer to ask a question anonymously, you absolutely can do so. You can also upvote questions. So if you're watching the Q&A and you're like, oh yeah, I have that question too, just go ahead and give it a little upvote and we'll come back to those at the end as well. Okay, I'm going to take it away and talk a little bit about paying for this program that you're interested in. Kristin made a bunch of good points that, like, if you're trying to be thrifty in this experience, the beginning part, like the work you do first, is around choosing a program and choosing a program type that is going to be affordable but also fulfilling for you. The next piece then is, after you have an idea of cost, is offsetting that cost with scholarships, grants, other opportunities to get the bill paid. Most existing grants, scholarships, and financial aid that you have can be applied. But we say most because perhaps there's a situation in which a scholarship that you have might not apply, or a grant might not apply. And we'll mention that connecting with financial aid is a great way to get those questions answered specifically about what's going on in your financial aid award package and if what will transfer to a bill for study abroad. They're going to be the experts on that always. What we can definitely speak to in this call, though, is scholarship opportunities. And I know that Kristin and her team, the advisors in Penn State Global, are pretty familiar with these scholarship opportunities as well. I actually think, Kristen, if you're okay with it, I'll talk about college, like university scholarships, partner scholarships, but you are the rep from the Education Abroad office. So I feel like your notes, particularly about the Pell and Gilman guarantee, would be really helpful for students to understand. So I'll let you do a quick explanation of that if you're okay with it, and then I'll take over on the remaining ones.
Yeah, absolutely. So we cultivate a document called the Easy Guide to Study Abroad Scholarships. And essentially what we do is we kind of like concentrate all in one place a bunch of different scholarship options for our students. The first section on that document is all about scholarships through our office. Pardon me. And we try to make it as easy as possible for our students. So when you're applying for a program, there's literally a section of your program application that just says, would you like to opt into being considered for Penn State scholarship, Penn State Global Scholarships? And all you have to do to be considered is hit yes. We do have a listing of all the different scholarships we offer through our office on that easy guide that you can kind of read through and see some information about each. But a newer one that we've started is our Pell Grant and Gilman Scholarship Guarantee. And that's because we recognize that students with high financial need often need a reassurance that they'll have at least a certain amount of scholarship support before they know that they can even think about participating in a program. So with our Pell Grant awardee students, if you are Pell eligible while you're applying or when you're going to be abroad, you are guaranteed at least $1,000 of Penn State Global Scholarship money for any of our programs that are not the embedded courses. If you're doing an embedded course program, the minimum is $750. So it's $750 for embedded, $1,000 for all other kinds of programs. And again, that is a minimum. So you could potentially be awarded more money through our office, but that's the lowest amount that you'll get. So you can kind of bank on that when you're planning. If you if you complete an application for the Gilman Scholarship and complete a writing workshop through our office that we advertise for each application cycle of the Gilman, then that minimum goes up another $250. So then the minimum for most programs would be or $200, I'm sorry. So the minimum would be $1,200 for most programs, and then $950, so almost $1,000 for the embedded programs. But again, it's a minimum. So there is potential for an additional award through our office. But that is something that is new, and we've seen a lot of success in it. A lot of students, it's just nice. It's a bit more solid ground to be making a decision about a program. We also list other scholarships that are available throughout the university system. And I can kind of pivot to Sarah to talk a little bit more about those.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And we talk a lot about this in our work at the office, that scholarship awarding in general is pretty decentralized here at the university. So you're going to want to be mindful of what your college or your specific major department has available. And that's really going to come from you doing research on your college's website or within the department's website, or connecting with faculty or your advisor within the college to get some more information.
We also list a bunch of them on the Easy Guide as well, with hyperlinks to those program pages.
Yes. And to that point, I just put in the chat the link to the Easy Guide to Study Abroad Scholarships. You're going to want to click on that and start perusing. And Clarissa can certainly speak to this if she wants to hop in now, that's fine, or later when she has her slide to talk about her experience with scholarships. There's funding out there, and it is really going to be on you all to go and look for it and be mindful of scholarship application deadlines so that you get the full consideration for these funds that you want to have, right? So be mindful. I know College of Engineering, I just had a conversation with them recently. They've got money for study abroad. A couple other colleges do as well. And also remember too, even if it's not earmarked specifically for travel abroad, if that scholarship does not otherwise have a restriction, like that's money that can apply to your bill regardless. So be looking for a robust offering of scholarships. This also might, have you looking beyond Penn State to some of the external partners. So CIEE, we know, was one of the partners that Kristin mentioned early on. You'll see a lot of programs with CIEE for study abroad tagged to them, as well as Arcadia. Tons more. What's really nice about the easy guide to study abroad scholarships link, that website we shared, is that there's also a link for some external partner scholarships as well. So please keep an eye on those. Mind the deadlines. I think Clarissa popped her camera back on. So if you want to tag any more information onto this, Clarissa, you're welcome to, because I know you have a lot of experience.
Yeah, so I'll touch on this a little bit later, but I have completed 2 programs through Penn State, and I was able to get both of those programs fully funded through enrichment and scholarships. None of them were need-based. They were all merit-based scholarships that I was applying to. And so I really, really, really want to harp on what Sarah just said, in that there is a lot of money at Penn State to support global experiences. You just have to take the onus to go and find it. And so that's kind of like the big moral of the story that I want to make sure all of you leave with, is if you take the time and you make the commitment to write a few essays to explain why you want to go do the program that you want to, it is entirely possible to get a large amount of money, because it's there. Penn State wants you to have it. They want you to be able to spend it. It's just on you to go out there and get it. And I'll talk again more specifically about how I went about doing that later, but really, really important, and something I'm really passionate about, because it makes education abroad affordable and possible if you just go out and find it.
Yeah. We like to say in the office, you got to make applying for scholarships a part-time job, honestly. And you do it every semester. You do it when you have some free time. That money is out there, and you want to make sure that you get a hold of it if it's within reach. And certainly you got to make that step in order to know for sure. So separate from funding and finding scholarships to pay for the cost of study abroad, I want you all to be mindful of another cost-saving opportunity if you live off campus, or if you are somebody who is currently living on campus. Housing matters. Number one, if you're an off-campus student, so let's say you are doing study abroad during the fall or spring semester, if you have a lease, you're locked into that, and you've got rent payments that you are on the hook for. So be mindful that, you could potentially sublet your apartment or sublet your room and have somebody take over your lease for a temporary period of time, or finish out the lease while you are doing your study abroad experience. You might also not have that opportunity. And so potentially you could be on the hook doubly for housing costs in the country that you're studying abroad in, as well as your housing costs here at University Park. So certainly double dipping on housing is not going to be the most cost effective strategy in this space, but it requires then that you are looking ahead. You obviously, making that academic and financial plan in advance, but also looking at some of these extras that might not be obvious at first glance. What I'll recommend here is that if you know you can sublet your apartment or your room, there are ways to do it for free and through reputable sites. Penn State actually has, through their Office of Off-Campus Student Support, a big, what do I want to call it? There's a word for this, it's not coming to mind, but basically it's a big dashboard where you can go and list your apartment or your room and find somebody who is vetted and within the Penn State community to take that over while you're studying abroad. You also have access to student legal services who can help you make heads or tails of your lease if you're not sure whether or not you can sublet your room or sublet your apartment. You're able to consult with somebody who is actually a licensed attorney and operating through Penn State for no cost, right? You don't have to pay extra for these individuals. They can advise for you, and they can also write letters on your behalf. So if there's any kind of messaging you need to send to your landlord or property manager, and you need the backing of an attorney to be able to make your messaging clear, you're able to take advantage of that. So be on the lookout to Google for these things. You're also going to want to be mindful if you're doing on-campus housing that, if you're coming back for that spring semester, that you have your housing organized. Kristin, you and I were just talking briefly about housing yesterday. Am I missing anything here?
No. So, unfortunately, I just talked to a student this morning who had to decline to commit to their program for spring of 2025 because they weren't able to find someone to sublet their apartment. So, this is another reason why the earlier you can kind of plan, the better, because then, if you opt to live on campus, we find that students find that the easiest, because you are able to just like decline the housing for the semester that you're going to be abroad. But if you're living off campus, if you're living in an apartment, maybe signing a shorter term lease, so you're not on the hook for these charges. Yeah, but the earlier you can do that, the better. We absolutely understand that this may be one of the most insidious costs that students looking to study abroad have to navigate. And I think the student legal services thing on here is absolutely relevant in this. If you are trying to sublet or, trying to navigate this with a landlord, the Student Affairs Off-Campus Housing Office has legal services available. So if a landlord is trying to tell you that you can't do something or you have to do something, you can actually submit it to them and see if it's legal for them to tell you that. And just check on that. And if it is not, they can even issue you letters to serve to your landlord, informing them of that.
Exactly.
So yeah, I feel like there's a lot of great resources available, but probably the best path forward in regards to housing for the semester you're not studying abroad is the earlier you can plan, the better.
Excellent. And Clarissa, if you're able to drop in the link for student legal services, I think that'll be a helpful one to share. So please be mindful of housing considerations as you all make this plan to study abroad. Going back to scholarships, though, financial aid, understanding what of your financial aid will apply. If you have questions specifically about your account, the financial aid office is going to be the best resource to get those questions answered. Kristin and her team can talk a ton about those scholarships, but financial aid is not really within their purview. There are ways to, in fact, I'll get the form up here in a second, but there's a contact form on the Office of Student Aid website that you can fill out and request an appointment to meet in person or Zoom to get some of your questions answered. So please be mindful of that. There are respective offices for a reason, because Kristin and I, we just can't know everything. So you all will have to, tap into your resources. You'll have this big trifecta of like your academic advisor, your education abroad advisor, as well as your a rep from financial aid to make sure everything checks out. Okay.
And the reason why we list Michelle Elliott in particular is because she is a partner of our office. So she does tend to know a bit more about, your existing aid and how it can be reflected within a study abroad experience. If you contact financial aid in general and ask someone and they're like, I don't know, which unfortunately has happened, reaching out to Michelle in particular or asking to be like redirected to Michelle, she should be able to have the information that you need.
Awesome. All right. Where'd my clouds go? My thought bubbles. So then let's transition then, right? It's worth mentioning again, like Kristin was getting at earlier, you really have to look inward. You really have to have a conversation with yourself when you are about to make the final decision and commit on a program. what are your academic, personal, and professional goals? What do you hope to get out of your education abroad experience? We've got some guiding questions included in the bubbles here, but this is really a conversation that starts with you and can be supplemented with, talking with your academic advisor or your abroad advisor or your family or mentor or whoever else is within this trusted circle of support that you keep around you. But you want to make sure that, like, in retrospect, you look back at your education abroad experience fondly, that you feel good about that choice that you made, because it's useful to you academically, professionally, personally, or otherwise. And you don't want to have to look back and go, from my perspective, and go, that was not a good financial move for me. We never want students to have that kind of thinking, feeling in the look back from where they've been while in college. So please use these guiding questions to affirm the choice that you're about to make for yourself. Does this match up academically with your program? Is it going to accelerate you forward? Are you traveling to a country that is going to allow you to immerse yourself in a kind of cultural experience that you desire? For example, back to this exchange program versus another, what kind of support do you need, or what level of independence are you hoping to get? And what will you gain, maybe some of those soft skills for your professional life after graduation? How is this going to help you not only, get grades, get courses completed for your program of study, but also allow you to build out a resume, to build out talking points about how you are a well-rounded and well-traveled individual who is a value add to your future company, the future organization, or really whatever you want to do after you graduate, right? So journal, talk with someone, talk to a mentor about these questions. I think that they're really important and worth answering, right?
And one thing I just wanted to say really quickly, Sarah, is when you're thinking about all of those things, also try to think outside the box a little bit. You know, we have a program in Barcelona, and I feel like when I read applications, one of the big things that people say is like, oh, I want to study in Barcelona because I want to improve my Spanish. But even though Barcelona is in Spain, Spanish is not the most commonly spoken language there. It's actually Catalan. So we have an incredibly, it might be one of the most affordable semester-long programs with CIEE in the Dominican Republic, which again is a much better opportunity to, gain immersion in Spanish for a much, much lower cost and more effective as well, because there's going to be more Spanish around you. So just kind of like challenging your initial thoughts and choices to see if you could think outside the box. Our global learning director, Brian Brubaker, talks a lot about this. He wanted to study French, but instead of going to France, he went to Africa, to a Francophone country there, and was able to study French in a very different cultural context. So, like I said, there's a lot of options out there. So keep your mind open.
I love that. Excellent perspective, Kristin. Thank you. Okay, so let's pivot now. Assuming that you've made your commitment, you've done your due diligence, you know what the cost is going to look like for the program itself, the actual billables, let's think about those non-billables. One being your travel costs. If you have not traveled internationally before, you might not have a passport. And if you don't have a passport, you need to get one. You can't travel without it. The minimum cost for a new passport, assuming you've never applied before, is going to be $165. Your visa is going to cost money. When you apply for a visa in the country that you're traveling to, you will usually have to pay for that visa, right? And that's going to vary. Airfare is going to cost you. Kristin mentioned earlier, sometimes it's going to be cheaper depending on where you fly from and where you fly to. It also might vary based on where you're buying, or like the medium through which you buy that ticket. So Clarissa can talk more to her experience, but I listed a couple of websites that will allow you to take a broad look at tickets that are available, so you can do some comparing to find the most affordable. Entertainment and dining while you're traveling can also add up quickly. Airport food is expensive. It's not always that good either. So you might want to consider packing snacks, making sure that like the 6 hours or the 12 hours or even longer that you're spending traveling from point A to point B, you've got some food covered and you're not having to pay, $20 for a Big Mac at the McDonald's in the airport, which is, unreasonably expensive for a Big Mac meal. Let's be real here, right? I also have personally fallen victim to not downloading music before I travel, and then I'm having to pay for Wi-Fi on the airplane when I really don't otherwise need it. I just need to get access to my songs, and I go, ugh, I shouldn't have had to pay this $8 for Wi-Fi, but here I am paying for it because I was a knucklehead and I didn't download my music on Spotify before I left. Okay, lesson learned, right? So take those kind of proactive steps to cut costs where you can. It might not be a ton of money, but if you save $8 not having to pay for Wi-Fi on the plane, well, that's $8 that you can then go and spend in the country you're visiting, or if you're doing some travel throughout, right? So be mindful there. There are ways to save money. Also, too, in this area, we think about credit and debit cards we bring along. Certainly only bring the cards that you need, but the ones that you do bring are probably going to come with foreign transaction fees applied to your transactions that you make. So when you go shopping or take money out of the ATM in your host country, be mindful that you may be charged an extra 1, 2, 3, maybe even 5% on top of that transaction cost, whatever the base cost is, or whatever you're pulling out of the ATM. And that can add up fast. So finding an opportunity to maybe get some of the currency here in the US before you travel. So some of the host country currency, you can do an exchange here in the US. You can find cheaper ways to do exchange once you get there as well. And certainly alert your bank before you travel. You don't want to hop on the plane and get to your host country and suddenly your credit card isn't working because you forgot to notify your bank that you were going to be, studying in Peru for the summer or something, right? All things to be mindful of. So more on these non-billables then, and this is where Clarissa will have more of a conversation with you, but when you're actually fully immersed in your experience, the week, the Maymester, the entire semester, however long you're there, costs are going to add up external from your billables. If you don't have a program fee, you're certainly paying for everything else out of pocket. But there's also then the fun stuff you want to be thinking about too. So like if you plan to gift, buy things for friends to bring back home, if you want to go out to eat and try new restaurants and new food, like these are all exciting things to do. Traveling, while traveling, like vacation within a study abroad, like so cool. Again, if I study abroad back in the day, I would have done this too. I mean, what a fun opportunity, but like, how do you do this in the most cost-effective way? Same with finding course materials, right? This is where your personal preferences, your lifestyle, and what you are okay with starts to factor in on, are you going to be spending more or less? So to speak to this, I don't know. Oh, Clarissa, do you have my remote too? Oh, no. I'm sorry. Hold on one second, Kristin. It's me. I just need to grab the remote. Oh, no. Okay. I'm just going to let that go right there. I don't know what my mouse is doing. It's all over the place. But I'm going to let Clarissa speak really quick here because she has such good perspective. And then we'll open up the floor for some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I mentioned earlier, I've completed 2 study abroad or education abroad experiences in my time at Penn State. My first year, I completed an embedded spring break course. So, I enrolled in a 3-credit long semester class that I took at University Park. And then for spring break, I traveled to Italy and went to 4 different cities over that week, which was Florence, Rome, Prato, and Bologna. And then this most recent May, I was over in Ireland for the entire month doing a research study tour. So I didn't take any class during the semester, but while I was there, I received 3 honors credits for studying deliberative democracy in the country of Ireland and got to travel around Dublin, Lahinch, Galway, different cool places in Ireland. Kind of the main things I want to hit on here without being too redundant with anything that's already been covered in the presentation is preparation is your best friend. There are no words to explain, especially if it's your first time traveling abroad, the feeling of excitement and sometimes overwhelming that you'll get the first time you leave the country and whenever you are seeing a new place. In that excitement, it's really easy to make decisions that are not going to be in your best financial interest. For example, souvenir shopping can be really, really devastating for students because one, souvenirs are always going to be more expensive than they probably should be, but two, you have really limited suitcase space. And so the worst thing that can happen is whenever you reach the end of your great study abroad experience, you're trying to pack everything back into your suitcase and you realize you are way over the weight limit. Been there. You could find yourself having to pay hundreds of dollars to get an extra bag to come home with you, or whatever it might be. So what I find to be really helpful is preparation is key. Before you leave, think about how much you want to spend on souvenirs and think really thoughtfully about what's going to be meaningful for your experience. For instance, rookie mistakes in Italy, bought a lot of things, had to get a new suitcase, had to pay for all of that. So when I went to Ireland, I was a lot more thoughtful about it. I got things like postcards that I thought were really pretty, that were photos of places that I liked to go. And that's something super lightweight that can come home that I then laminated and now hang on my wall as artwork, right? So there's ways that you can still buy really meaningful things while you're abroad and bring them home with you without breaking the bank. And these similar philosophies applies for all things with study abroad. So whenever we're talking about dining out or eating out, making a plan of how many restaurants do I want to go to, how frequently, and sometimes lunch should be a sandwich that you make with a loaf of bread that you buy from the grocery store, especially if your program is longer. You would be amazed by one, how much money you waste eating out, but two, how much money you can save if you're willing to eat some meals at home, cook them in a kitchen, or even just buy things that don't require any cooking, like sandwiches and wraps and things like that. I have so many other things that I could say. So if you have specific questions, I'm more than happy to answer them now. But the moral of the story is study abroad, regardless of what your major is or what your intentions are after your undergraduate experience, is so valuable and so powerful. And there's a way to make it affordable for you if you're willing to put in the time to figure it out. There's a study abroad program for pretty much every educational requirement you have. And so I really encourage you to think about, even if it's just a week for spring break or a month for your Maymester, taking some time to go out and see the big world that surrounds you, because your undergraduate time is kind of the best time to do it when you have Penn State behind you. So that's kind of my spiel. But if there's any questions that I can answer, I'm also going to put my email in the chat, so you can feel free to reach out to me one-on-one, and I'm happy to talk with anybody about that as well.
Oh, this is great. I mean, so Clarissa does a lot of conversations at our office around making college affordable. She's a great person to speak with. But let's give a nod to Kristin's team, the peer advisors that work with her, and how they are able to have these kind of conversations that Clarissa was just sharing with you all. But their primary mission is just to talk about study abroad and be relatable in that way. Kristin, I know you all are over in Buki. You want to give a quick nod to how students can come over and talk with the peer advisors?
Yes. So they're actually out in the hallway right now. We're up at 422 Buki across from the hub. We have a team of peer advisors who are all students who have studied abroad through our office at a myriad of different programs in a ton of different majors. And they are here Monday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. You do not have to make an appointment. You can just drop in. However, if you are not at University Park campus, or getting to Buki is taxing, we do have Zoom appointments that you can schedule with them. There's the link here in the presentation, which is fantastic. I could not recommend them enough. They're a fantastic group, really, really knowledgeable, both about like education abroad and Penn State in general. And I think it's also just really great to hear, about their experiences and their stories. And because I think that that's, going to inspire you, because that could be you in a couple months.
Mm-hmm. And then I brought this up because you're already talking about your advisor, so I figured let's just share the education abroad contact information too.
So all the education abroad advisors do have appointments that are available to be scheduled in Starfish. We all have weekly advising. You can find who advises for what on our website. So you see here that global.psu.edu/education. There's a ton of resources there, including all of us and our portfolios and the opportunity to make appointments with us. We do recommend that you meet with a peer advisor first, just because they're good at like getting you started. And then once you have a better idea of, where you would like to study or what, we can dig a little deeper with you in an appointment. Our general email inbox is educationabroad@psu.edu. Both advisors and peer advisors answer those emails. So send your questions our way. We also have an Instagram account that we really recommend students follow. We post on there about upcoming informational sessions, activities, like usually at least once a semester, we're on the lawn in front of the Buki building, just like giving out snacks and information, as well as our big education abroad fair, which is happening on October the 30th in Alumni Hall at the Hub from 11 to 4. Anybody who swipes in is entered for one of five $500 scholarships for an education abroad program through our office. So we hope as many people as possible can come visit us for that. We also have a great YouTube channel that you'll see here with some really nice informational and short videos about things to think about when you're choosing a program, costs, scholarships, lots of stuff. So please connect with us if you have interest. We would love to talk with you.
That is amazing. Okay, go to the fair. Everybody go to the education abroad fair. You could win $500.
We also have free creamery ice cream while supplies last. And we got to name a special flavor of ice cream for this month. It is round the world raspberry fudge ripple, I think. I can't remember. But yeah, so exclusive flavor for the fair this month.
That's amazing. All right. Well, we've got some cool stuff too at the office, but we don't have ice cream. We don't have $500 in giveaways. But what I will say is, if you want to meet with our team, if you want to be able to communicate with Clarissa, you've got her email in the chat. You can also schedule one-on-one appointments with our student staff as well as professional staff. And I think what really the message here is, the education abroad office is going to help you narrow down on a program and understand those budget sheets so you can kind of do a comparison between which to find what is most affordable. And then in particular, those non-billables. Budgeting for your lifestyle while traveling abroad is really, I think, where our office is able to come in and support as well, and also help you preemptively formulate and stick to a savings goal if you're looking to generate a certain amount of saved money in anticipation for your education abroad opportunity, right? So we're here to support you all the way around and make sure that you can take advantage of a study abroad opportunity while you're in school. Like Clarissa said, Penn State's behind you, and we are just a little snippet of who those folks are.